Welcome back. There is so much to talk about today. And so I pray for the wisdom and intelligence to keep it concise and to the point. But first, there's no cat here today because he's very interested in the plate of tuna that was offered to the possum last night. So he's trying to figure out how to get it out of the cage. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, the here's a question for you. Are you a spiritual person? Boy, do we bandy that word around a lot, especially in our community, in our ilk, don't we? And oftentimes we hear things like I'm spiritual but not religious. But sometimes we hear I'm religious and spiritual. Sometimes we utilize the word. But what I'm interested in is when somebody uses the word, what does it really mean to them? I talk to people a lot. I've been coaching people for well nigh 20 years now and love conversations, deep conversations. And one of the things I'll often hear from people in the process of conversation, or I'll ask them is like, are you a spiritual person? And if they say yes, then I ask them to say, well, what does that mean? What does it mean? Close your eyes, think for a moment. If you say that you're a spiritual person, can you define that? By the way, there's no consequence if you can't, but it's interesting if we can. And if somebody were to come up and poke me in the chest, man on the street interview, and say, are you spiritual? I would say, well, by golly, I am. What does that mean? And I guess the first thing I would say is that I believe in and I live on the premise that consciousness is primary. Consciousness comes first. Being spiritual, it means that thinking, consciousness, presence of being itself is the ultimate ground of being, and that everything that is material flows from that, is the consequence of that, is the vibrational repercussion of that. Well, great. Can you elaborate? Can you turn that into anything meaningful? Well, yeah, I'm going to give you a little example. I think because we're spiritual, I think spirit is immortal and inextinguishable and invincible. And that means we're spiritual beings having a material existence. Great. Well, what does that mean? It means that we're in the game for a very long time and that consciousness is ongoing. This is as simple as I can put it. Consciousness is ongoing. Well, is there any anecdotal evidence of that? Yeah, the overwhelming number of near-death experience stories that are beginning to spread around the planet as our ability to communicate and tell stories and to record stories and to tell stories radically increases. Also, our ability to bring people back from the brink of death with modern medical techniques. And so there's this gigantic body of near-death experience stories. And what's interesting is how they all, 90% of them, have a theme or a narrative. Of course, what happens is individual, but the stories are spectacularly similar in terms of the narrative and the structure. And one of the things that's common to near-death experience stories is quote unquote judgment day. We get a review. We get a review of the life that we just led. Okay, so now I've built this platform and I've got, 2 minutes to wrap it up. But if we're spiritual and we're ongoing, that means when we're in this lifetime, we're going to have a hell of a ride, man. We're going to essentially, as I would call it, sift and sort through an unbelievable amount of experiences. And we are going to make mistakes, so to speak. We're going to do this thing called sinning. Sinning comes from an ancient Greek word that you probably have heard this before. It's an archery term. It means to miss the mark. It means we're going to wander through life, sift and sort through an unbelievable amount of experiences, oftentimes with no backup experience, no ability to even have any clue whether we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. We're just banging into things and making mistakes. Now, there's the kind of mistake that we make when we have no idea that we're making a mistake. Then there's the kind of mistake we make when we know we're making a mistake. Two different brands of sinning. But anyway, the point I'm getting at today is we are going to sift and sort through a lot of experiences. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. We're going to do a lot of course correction. And since we're all going to do that and no one is immune, the question is in our afterlife review, as we look back, the main question is, how did we learn from our mistakes? Did we learn quickly, efficiently, intelligently, or did we keep making the same damn mistakes over and over and over again? Wow, this makes me recall the definition of insanity. Insanity is making the same mistake over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So I would hope and I would pray and I would think and I would experience that in the process of meditation, we get smarter, our consciousness improves, we get wiser and more intelligent, so that why we will continue to make mistakes. We will course correct and and we will aim better, more quickly, more efficiently, and we will learn better to the point where, well, will we ever get to the point where we don't make mistakes anymore? That is the topic for tomorrow. In the meantime, probably not. Let's learn from our mistakes since we're spiritual beings and let go of guilt and shame because everybody makes them and move forward with alacrity. Have a beautiful day.